This is Potpourri. You are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri. It's a potpourri of discussions, ideas, subject matters, and we invite your telephone call. You are listening to KWAI 1080 on your AM dial. I want to again announce, just so that in the event you would like to review some of these radio broadcasts, we are at where is it? sites.google.com. So sites is plural, and then google.com, and then /site, which is singular now, and another /, and then it's Pokalainui, Pokalaenui, and you will see quite a number of radio programs with just me in the studio and taking your telephone calls and expressing my thoughts and giving you a chance to express yours as well. And so the discussion that we seem to be developing, and I use the term meandering through the field of thoughts, are the society itself, and how do we avoid being dumbed down by government actions, by, to a certain extent, the overflow or the number of or the burden of so much information, and oftentimes the information are repetitive and not analytical enough so that we can really understand it. And what is needed in the society so that we can pierce through and get to some deeper value and deeper level of the society. And the first caller who raised this issue brought up the question of education, and how education itself, rather than liberating our minds, actually participate in the dumbing down of our minds. And I think the potential for education as a tool can be an effective tool, but when we allow it to get this tool to get into the wrong hands, then in this particular case it is used merely to meet the industrial needs of the society, and so all we're doing is producing economic industrial factors for the industrial society. Not totally. We do have some schools that encourage independent thought, encourage this type of deeper thinking, but by and large the education system seems to have been stolen by those who are simply using it to produce more automatons to get into the industrial world. And some of the principles that they teach, as the first caller had mentioned, is one, punctuality, so that you can get to your job and you can perform appropriately. The second is to learn to be satisfied with repetitive task or monotonous task, and which is one of the major reasons for a lot of dropouts, and I guess the innate sense of a young person knowing that they want to be more than just performing monotonous tasks until they may have a child, or they may have caused a pregnancy of someone else and now sees responsibility, and then getting suckered into or getting sucked into employment, the need to meet the economy, and so saying that, well, after they raise this child to a certain age, and they will go ahead and meet their dreams, and then they end up with a second and a third child, and then they end up with a mortgage, and it becomes a never-ending system. So repetition and monotony becomes part of a life after a while. And then the third part is the arbitrary or the acceptance of authority without question. And this idea that, well, don't be a radical, just go along with it, don't be a troublemaker, until they may find themselves in certain situations where they themselves want to challenge authority. And as they look around, everyone else is now telling them what they used to tell other people. Don't be a troublemaker, just go along with it. And then you have the problem of peer pressure as well as the other pressures, economic pressures. So it leads to a society that is not really a society that reaches to its top potential, elevating the human spirit to its heights. Okay. Not a very, what is the word for it? Positive view of our societies. But at least we begin to pose questions, asking and doing an analysis of where are we and where can we improve? How can we identify those things that we need to overcome? Because if we don't know what the challenges are and we are just feeling uncomfortable with the way life is, or we are hurting as we go through life and we don't begin to ask the questions, then we join in protest, which is not well directed. And that's one of the worst things that I can think of whenever I would participate or would be in the leadership of protest movements. I would always want clarity, because protest can be very exhausting, very energy sapping, and at times it can also be dangerous. So if the objectives are not very clear, and the tactics by which you're going to achieve the objectives are not well analyzed and set forth, then you should not move unless there is no opportunity for the type of planning. If there is opportunity for planning, always do the planning before taking the action. The old saying of that 3-count saying, ready, aim, fire, is still very effective. Always get ready, prepare yourself, be sure that your analysis is very clear, take good aim before you execute on that plan. Of course, if you have no other opportunity to prepare and be analytical, but you need to react immediately, of course you react. But oftentimes that is not the case, and people just out of frustration will just react. But you need to be very thoughtful in any action that you take. Okay, so we've covered some of this, and if you would like to call and share a general thought or something more specific, you're welcome to call. Our telephone number here is 524-1080. I am Potpourri Nui, and I welcome you to join in our discussions. We've also talked about the some of the terms that we use, an agrarian community or society, an industrialized society, a corporate society, and what difference, or are they essentially different, or are they essentially the same, and they would differ only in terms of their objectives and their how sacred they hold individuals within that society, how sacred they hold one another, how sacred they hold the environment and are protective of the environment. Can a corporation understand that sacredness and not elevate the profit margin above all things? I believe it can be, and that depends on what is the soul or the heart of a particular corporation. Of course, you have many not-for-profit organizations which are corporations, and their intent or their founding vision and statement is for and it's a clarity of what their sole purpose is, and oftentimes it is for the care of children, for the care of animals, whether it's a horse or the birds in the forest or the forest itself. So you can have a corporate structure with a soul within it. And at other times, when normally we talk about corporations, we are talking about business corporations whose main intent is just to maximize the profit of its investors, and irrespective of what kind of business they engage in. So they may make weapons of war, but as long as it makes profit, that's good, and they engage in that. So it's a question of how do you explore, and what are the codes that one should follow as one engages in life and in different structures, whether they are corporation or other industrial organizations. And even if just being a farmer, if the only thing you want to do is extract as much as you can out of the land without caring for, as we say, malama, the land, then you're going to operate in a particular way. So what you're really talking about, I guess, is what is the character of the individuals that we create, or that we raise, that we mature in our society. And when I say that we mature, I'm also talking about we ourselves, and how do we care for ourselves and our own thought process and our own values. Is this what it all comes down to? Not integration, but the reinvestment of values within each one of us, and getting those things straight? Perhaps. Okay. Some people say too deep. Let's take a while to think about it, and we'll be back. Let's go to some music. Kahula Vai by Brother Israel Kamakavivo Ole.
Boina itahi pita te uluma e mae. Maino ho e aho bo ina itahi pita te uluma e mae. Aina ia mai anaka puana aho heva ia e nini uai. Aina ia mai anaka puana aho heva ia e nini uai. E nini uai.
And that is, of course, Brother Israel Kamakaviva. You are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri on radio station KWAI 1080 on your AM dial. During the music, a caller called and asked me to go to page C2. I have no idea what he said, and he says, okay, I'll hang up. And so I was wondering, what do you mean, caller? Go to page C2. And then I figured out that what you had wanted me to do was go to today's Star Advertiser at page C2. Is that the case? The unfortunate thing is I don't have that newspaper with me. What I normally do is I read through it before I come to the studio. I cut things out, and then I set all of the papers on the side, and I've already identified those things that caught my attention. And I'm sorry, I can't go to page C2. There must be something that you were particularly interested in. The telephone number here, and of course you know the number because you had called. I'll just announce it again. It's 524-1080. And if you would like to call back and share that particular issue that you had, you're welcome to call back and share that issue. I was going to speak about GMO or grossly manipulated organism. No, I'm sorry, genetically modified organisms, and I did mention Brazil. And I'll go ahead and speak on that subject. If you would like to call and get back to the earlier topic that we had talked about, give me a call at 524-1080. Brazil, the second largest producer of genetically modified crops after the U.S., is the latest country to take a stand against biotech giant Monsanto, which could end up handing over at least $2 billion as a result. A war has been waging against Monsanto in Brazil for nearly a decade, virtually ever since the country legalized farming of GM crops in 2005. Since then, Monsanto has been charging Brazilian farmers double, once for their seeds and again when they sell their crops. Farmers have had enough with Monsanto's royalty, taxes, and penalties. In case you're wondering how Monsanto has risen to the ranks of a superpower, a major reason is their patent on GM seeds, like the GM soya seeds in Brazil, which account for nearly 85% of the country's total soybean crop. Each GM seed is patented and sold under exclusive rights. Therefore, farmers must purchase the GM seeds every year because saving seeds, which has long been the traditional way, is considered to be patent infringement. Anyone who does save GM seeds must pay a license fee to actually re-sow them. But that's not all. In Brazil, Monsanto has charged farmers a 2% royalty fee on all of their Roundup Ready sales since 2005, and they test all of the soy seeds marketed as non-GM to be sure they don't contain any Monsanto seeds. If they are found to contain the patented seeds, the farmer is penalized close to 3% of his sales. The issue with the latter penalty is that GM soy is very hard to contain and often contaminates nearby fields. So farmers are forced to pay a penalty for having their fields contaminated with GM crops through no fault of their own and likely against their wishes entirely. For years now, farmers have been taking Monsanto to court over their excessive fees and taxes, and in 2009, a group of farmers sued the company, claiming the Monsanto tax was illegal because it was impossible to keep the GM seeds away from the non-GM varieties. A judge ruled that the tax was illegal, especially since the patent on Roundup Ready seeds in Brazil already expired. Monsanto was ordered to stop collecting all royalties and to return all the royalties collected since 2004, an amount that could add up to a minimum of $2 billion. Monsanto appealed, but in June 2012, the Supreme Court dismissed it. So it looks like Monsanto is going to be getting their just desserts. France, India also find Monsanto guilty. Earlier this year, a French court found Monsanto guilty of chemical poisoning in a case involving a French farmer who suffered neurological problems after exposure to Monsanto's lasso weed killer. A few years before that, a French court again found Monsanto guilty, this time of falsely advertising its Roundup herbicide as biodegradable, environmentally friendly, and claiming it, quote, left the soil clean. France has also recently asked the European Commission to suspend Monsanto's authorization to plant genetically modified MON 810 corn, citing, quote, significant risk for the environment shown in recent scientific studies. Germany has also banned the cultivation of MON 810 corn. Meanwhile, India's National Biodiversity Authority, the NBA, a government agency, is suing Monsanto and their collaborators, the Maharashtra Hybrid Seeds Company, for stealing local varieties of eggplant to develop a genetically modified version. India requires that any entity attempting to use a native plant for commercial or research purposes must first get approval. Monsanto, however, neglected to do this, opting instead to essentially steal the native plant in order to modify them for their own commercial gain. The case marks the first time a government has accused Monsanto of biopiracy, and the result could set an important precedent for the future of food supply. And it goes on. It's not a beautiful story. And so that's some of the news dealing with GMO, dealing with Monsanto, and the many things that Monsanto is getting into. There's a whole list of Monsanto behavior which is unconscionable. One includes contributed to the research on uranium for the Manhattan Project during World War II, operated a nuclear facility for the U.S. government until the late 1980s, top manufacturer of synthetic fibers, plastic, and polystyrene, EPA's fifth-ranked chemical production that generates the most hazardous waste. And then it goes on and on. All right? Okay. Now, this is Poka Lainui. You have been listening to Hawaiian Potpourri on radio station KWAI 1080 on your AM dial. I will be back tomorrow morning from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and we'll see what our discussion will lead into tomorrow morning. We'll probably talk more about local issues. There's a lot of campaigns going on, and we'll give you an opportunity. If you have a candidate who would like to call in and share their thoughts about certain things, they're welcome to call, and I will not hesitate to ask questions and to get into discussions with anyone who chooses to call. And that will be from 6 to 8 tomorrow morning on this radio Sure. So I want to thank all of you for joining me, for giving me an opportunity to be with you and to share some of these thoughts. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Take care, Hawaii. Aloha. Ahui ho.
Kaulana nā pua o Hawaii, Kupa'a mahope o ka aina, Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino, Pala pala anunu me ka pata. Mane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave, Koku ana honoa o Pilani, Ka ko'o mai ka ua I o mano, Pa'apu me ke one o ka kuhi hewa. Aolea e kau I ka pulima, Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi, Po'ohui ai nā ku ai hewa, I ka pono sivila a o ke kanaka. Aole makoa e mina mina, I ka pu'u ka